Good afternoon, everyone. I don't know. I hope you can hear me. Um, my name is, as has been said, Julio Candeiro. I work for Mosaico, an Angolan NGO that works for human rights. Um, I would like to start by thanking SITSE for the invitation, which honor us, but it's also a big challenge, especially to reflect with you on this systemic change. And speaking on the last day, it's always nice because you know the whole work has been done, but also challenging in the sense that you may say useless things that have been already said. The issue that has been proposed for me to reflect with you is the courage to act. And I would like to really shift maybe my reflection on courage to act on this issue of systemic change by focusing on gender issue. Um, why? Because as Mosaic, we work on human rights. We are, as I said, an organization started by the Dominicans friars in Angola in 1997 in the context of war. So you can imagine how it was start talking human rights in those contexts. And we thank our partners, Miserio, and all others who from the beginning have been there to support us. And I think the courage to act for us should make us have a choice and know where to start. In many of our issues, the differences between thinking, judging, and act. Sometimes it's always useless if we see, we think, we reflect, but we have no courage to act. So this is a challenge to all of us to make sure that what we have been thinking, what we have been reflecting on, what constitutes a challenge for us, we put it into action. And why we think systemic change through gender issue is because for us, when we defend women's rights, we are really indeed defending human rights. We are defending a group that corresponds to the majority of the population, but because of the custom, tradition, socialization, religions, has been made voiceless and put in submissive position and left behind. And so we believe that focusing on public policies that are inclusive and take into account women, we can change the situation in our country. And I think it's not only in our country, it's in all over the world. Because in Angola and I believe in many other countries, women are the weakest point, are the first victims of this multiple discrimination that I've been talking about, racism, colonialism, education, ethnicity, culture, religion, class, all these issues that sometimes polarize the society always make women the first victims. I don't know if you all know Angola, but Angola is a very big country in Africa. And we have, like many other countries in the world, 50% of the population are women. But here, 51% of these women are under the age of 15. And 18% of these young women have already started their reproductive life. 29% of those live in some sort of marriage, arranged marriage, and so on. In between of those countries, this population also, the age of 15 women, at the age of 15, sorry, have already had their babes. So as you can see, a lot of problems that we face in our country, and I think in our countries, affect women. So the courage to act for us forces us to begin with the most populous group, which is women, and also the most influential group, which are women. There's a saying here that if you want to educate a person, send a boy to school, educate a boy. But if you want to educate a village, educate a women, because women are at the center of all that happens in our society. So I would like to share with you where we started this attempt to act on systemic change by focusing on gender. Uh, we have started in 2019 a project called Promoting Advocacy for Inclusive Public Policies in Angola, implemented in partnership with FEC, that you all know, and a project funded by the European Union. The main objective of this project was to support the participation of civil society organizations in the creation and implementation of inclusive development policies and good governances. And what we wanted to achieve with that is the strengthening of the budget literacy and advocacy capacities of local civil society organizations, and also what we call local human rights group, to influence the impacts of the general state budget on public policy directed at vulnerable groups with particular focus on women. We also wanted to inform and influence public decision makers at all levels and citizens in general to an evidence-based communication and advocacy strategy on the issues of public policy and how it is reflected on the national state budget. The project unfolded into four main parts: working with local human rights groups from 6 municipalities on budget and gender literacy through training for transformation methodology. Secondly, carrying out annual analysis of the state budget with focus on budget allocation for policy directed and the most vulnerable groups, with emphasis on the needs of the women. Thirdly, carrying out social survey with national representativeness on inclusive public policy from gender perspective. And then fourthly, carrying out a communication and advocacy strategy based on the gender-based analysis of the result of the social survey. I would like to say why we have, of course, we have a very big target group that we focus on that. But what we intended to do is to look at public policies and see how inclusive or not they are with regards to vulnerable groups and specifically to women. And so what we have decided to do as one of the parties to use the training for transformation methodology. Why training for transformation? Because it's a methodology rooted, of course, in Paulo Freire philosophy, which is a very transformative methodology. And the center of the whole process is the person. So TFT believes that everything begins with the person. So it's a very positive methodology that encourages us to see what we see in Genesis. God has seen that all that he has created is indeed very good. So that includes, and maybe in first place, it implies human being very good. So this methodology enacts us to believe and make everyone believe and discover that he or her is the first and the most important agent for change. And so we believe that no other change no change can happen without a human being at the center. And all the structures that we try to influence most of the time, as we have been discussing, cannot happen if at the center of everything, there's no change of the person himself or the person herself. And so after some times of trainings, we have seen a lot of things that I'm not able to share with you because of time, but we have experienced in many of our groups that we accompany all over the country, in the increase of the number of participation of women. So it's almost a parity situation now that we are dealing with. Uh, and in a society like Angola, very traditional, it's something amazing. Um, uh, we have increased the number of participation of women in terms of arts, production of arts, music, poetry, small documentaries that I can share with you, or you can go and check on our website. The women participation has also been seen in radio programs that we have been put into place, and also their participation into many other programs that we have created. And all those we see an increase on the number of women and also an increase in the quality of their participation. We also experienced an increase on the number of case filed by women. As Mosaic, we have a program of free legal aid and legal support for poor people. And before, we used to have a lot of men coming and presenting their cases. But as a result of using TFT, we see an increase in the number of cases that are denounced and are put forward by women. This has also been an active moment for us to engage with other platforms at international level, like at the African Commission on People and Human Rights, or other networks of human rights, to say, if we are to act for change, we need to start with women. So we believe that the courage to act needs implies to us to acknowledge that we may not be able to change the whole world, as Polybaka says, but we can change our small world, the small world we're living in. This is starting from our inner selves, our homes, our families, our institutions, and our communities. And this is the whole logic of the TFT. Instead of trying all to make social change from nowhere, is to build stronger communities, starting with the individual. So the courage to act also implies to us to acknowledge that human rights, that all the other values are political fights. We need to be aware that our governments are pushing in a contrary direction, that we will not always be welcome by our governments. And on the issues of women, sometimes we will not be welcomed by the church herself. You need a lot of courage to acknowledge that when you talk in the Angolan context, like in many other African contexts, when you talk about health reproduction, about the right or not for contraceptive, when you talk about many other things that maybe at the Occident level are no longer a discussion, here they are still a discussion. And so we need not to be afraid to stick by the truth, by what we believe it's the correct time. And somebody says, the truth is a daughter of time. Sooner or later, the truth will always prevail. So I think this should be our motto, to be able to act. And yes, in this field, sometimes we seem overcome by the challenges. You face so many issues, so many problems, so many difficulties, poverties and the death and all these issues around you. And if you not able to celebrate small victories, as Josiane says, you lose courage to act. The mountain seems too big for you to climb. But it's encouraging to look, as that's why I brought this case particular of this project, because it enables us to say, okay, the problems are not over yet, but we have a lot of small victories to celebrate. And in our struggle in this world, it's not about winning the war, is about winning small battles. And these small battles, we believe, should start by what is the most important, the underpinning issue in our context, which is starting with women. Women who are duty bound, are obliged to do everything, but not always recognized as subject. And we know that the whole village is educated by women. Women are the one at the center of everything. Unfortunately, our policies, our evangelization, sometimes even our funding proposals leave them behind, leave them out of the equation. So for us, we should celebrate the courage of women that are doing something in our context. And also we should to have the courage to put women at the center of every change that we want to produce in our society. Thank you very much for your attention.